So here we are at the research cube, and we're going to go through this, not all the cubes, but we're going to go through it cube by cube to try and describe how you can use this cube and hopefully the template that you're using that hopefully looks something like that to try and help guide your choice of research design. So for example, the orange cube, right, back here, would be a research project that is broadly generalizable, causal, and longitudinal in nature. So, for example, in testing Tylenol or any kind of randomized controlled trial that would be appropriate for a new widely marketed drug, we would establish the effect of Tylenol on liver disease, for example. So many thousands of people would participate over time to track what happened with their Tylenol use and then liver disease. And now we know that Tylenol can, in fact, exacerbate liver disease. Similarly, the white cube in front is narrowly generalizable, descriptive, and cross-sectional. So they're kind of on opposite ends of the cube. So this might be a situation where you're evaluating one particular executive's response to one executive coaching session, where you're trying to evaluate just in this particular slice of time, how has this person responded? You aren't necessarily going to say all people will respond that way. Rather, you're going to acknowledge that this is this particular executive and his or her response to one particular event. Moving to the yellow cube over here, we now have broadly generalizable, descriptive, and cross-sectional research. So we might be interested in evaluating the role of cell phone use and car accidents. We aren't going to randomly assign people in a group to use your cell phone and perhaps have a car accident. That would clearly be unethical. Rather, we're going to collect data across many different contexts and then evaluate that data to see if there is a relation. As we discover there's a more and more consistent relation, we get closer to being able to establish cause. The research that has has evaluated the link between cell phone use and car accidents. Much of it has been done in simulation and controlled environments. Job satisfaction and stress. We cannot randomly assign people to different real-life jobs. We cannot do that. However, we can look at what the relation is between job satisfaction and stress, and it isn't what you might guess it would be, but I'll let someone else tell you that answer. So the blue cell up here, narrowly generalizable, causal, cross-sectional. This might be the case where Google tests a change to its search algorithm. That search algorithm is going to be used across all kinds of contexts, but it's only Google's search algorithm. So it's only generalizable to Google's algorithm, I would argue. It is causal. Every day, all day, they're randomly assigning people to experience tweaks to their algorithm or not. Right, so that would be a random assignment, and the group that doesn't get their new tweak would be considered the control group. It is cross-sectional typically. Today, how is this particular event working? However, they would probably follow up to determine if that change to the algorithm was helpful over time or if it had lost the boost that it had provided. The purple cell back here, that is narrowly generalizable, causal, and longitudinal. So, for example, diagnosing a person with seasonal affective disorder, right? So causal and longitudinal, we would need for it to be longitudinal because for seasonal affective disorder to occur, a person has to experience a change of seasons. And our rotation around the sun determines how that goes. So we would have to follow a person over several years where the seasons changed and to try and determine for that individual if that was what is consistently related to the change in their mood. Would we have random assignment here? necessarily, simply because it's not possible to have random assignment in this particular context with one particular individual. So then we might want to evaluate the impact of leadership on firm outcomes. And how would we do that using the research cube? We would want to evaluate whether the sample we have is generalizable across a large population. Is there random assignment and a control? And then last, is there an effective time that we are interested in studying? So, for example, we might look at that white cube, where we have a narrowly generalizable, descriptive, and cross-sectional design that we're using. So we might want to evaluate the effect of top management, effect on the top management team, trust after your boss has one listening skills session. So the boss experiences some listening skills, tries it out with his or her top management team, and then we want to see how that impacts trust. Broadly generalizable, descriptive, and cross-sectional, how would we apply that to the impact of leadership on firm outcomes? We might take a random sample of CEOs from publicly held corporations and interview them about a specific event they orchestrated that impacted firm outcomes. The issue here is we are randomly selecting CEOs from the population of interest. This would be the most broad that we could get with this kind of question. Then next, maybe we want this broadly generalizable causal longitudinal, and you will see just how difficult that would be to accomplish for a question like this. So for example, we could, probably not, but we could try to randomly assign 50 qualified female and 50 qualified male CEOs to 100 publicly held companies. We could control for personality, experience, the social networks they have, their age, their development as transformational leaderships, their perception of market growth and retraction, or the actual occurrence of market growth or retraction at the particular time. And we could assess stock price quarterly for 10 years. So this is kind of underscoring how difficult it is to do research with high internal validity while we are trying to maximize the external validity. Right, so it would never actually be the case that a company would allow for a random assignment of its CEO, right? So it's just very difficult to do that. Now, certainly experimental research is possible because that's what that orange cube is, right? It's causal, longitudinal, and broadly generalizable. However, you just have to understand there's always going to be some trade-offs, and not every question would be amenable to every approach.